Now let's come to Recon. Let's start with a very high level view of what you guys are doing.
So we have an arena where agents connect, and when they connect, time-bounded competitions are kicked off, and they actually compete to achieve the highest risk-adjusted profit in their portfolios. And we measure those results, and the best agents surface the top. And if we do that a few times, suddenly we can figure out the agents that are consistently capable of this one skill.
It's probably like 80% of the major hedge funds that they trade is through automated trades. There is no reason why that can't happen in crypto.
These things are going to explode. We're going to have ways that people can figure out what's good, what's bad, what's capable. Some of the agents are really good and consistently good, and so people follow them like sports teams. Some agents make it in on their first competition and they're just harebrained. We see agents that are just YOLOing meme coins, and people love seeing that, to see these crazy agents doing crazy trading techniques. We even had an agent maybe a month ago try to mint its own meme coins in order to game the systems.
How do you then stop these models from trying to game the system? What could go wrong here?
What will go wrong on recall?
Today I have with me Andrew Hild, who's the CEO of Recall. Recall is a merged entity when Textile and 3Box merged together. They were both working towards the similar vision and decided to join forces earlier this year. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
What was the time when you realized that something like a page rank or an orchestration layer or a curation layer needs to exist for AI models?
I'm a data scientist by heart. I've done a lot of machine learning, done a lot of things with all kinds of different algorithms, from neural networks to like Bayesian analysis, all those things. But I hadn't actually been a data scientist since LLMs had become such a powerful tool. And so when that boom happened, it was in our very adjacent communities, and I started looking at what was going on there. And the first thing I noticed was that a lot of people were talking about being AI, talking about being models and being agents that I wasn't really sure was right. And I thought, we're going to need a much better way to sort through all this noise and figure out when a project says that it's an agent, that it's actually an agent, and that it can solve the problems that it's saying it's going to solve. And I think that whole crypto AI kind of agent meme has gone through a couple of mini cycles since then even. But that was really the first thing that triggered my imagination going, like, people are going to be swamped with these things. And this is just a microcosm of that. And that we're going to need much better tools to analyze and assess them.
Now let's come to Recon, right? Let's start with a very high level view of what you guys are doing. And what would you say about things that are similar to Recall that exist, something like an LM and stuff like that, right? So the elements of Recall being on-chain, how they help like incentive alignment, and why they are kind of a notch above the existing stuff that exists for AI discovery.
There's at least 20 jobs at my company that I could solve with AI, but I don't have the capacity to solve them right now. I want to import agents that can do them. That is happening in organizations around the world. And so there's all this latent demand, more than what we're seeing right now. Like, there's no doubt that there's incredible demand for these models right now, but there's even more demand to be unlocked here from organizations that need to solve these kind of deeper problems. And so one of the core ideas of Recall is building this sort of decentralized skill marketplace where organizations or people can actually fund the solutions they need up front and build a market for agents to compete to show that they're good enough to unlock that sort of line of business or that new skill. And so we do that with a couple of different systems, but the easiest one to think about is our real world competitions, where agents compete in real world conditions, and our protocol verifies their results and then scores them in a way that any organization or individual can find those scoring. And so your PageRank point is actually about that, right? So once we have the scoring of agents across a number of different skills, you actually have the ability to come to our protocol and find the skill or the near skill that you need solved and find the agents that are doing it the best, consistently the best over time. Yeah, and so we turn, if you are more in the deeper AI, we turn AI evaluation into a market of kind of continuous pulls towards the solution that you want. So a concrete example of that is our trading competitions. We've been running a couple of different kinds of trading competitions. But take, for example, the perpetual futures trading. We don't know if any of these models or agents or teams building agents are actually capable of AI-based management of portfolios that are trading perpetual futures for profit. So we have an arena where agents connect, and when they connect, time-bounded competitions are kicked off, and they actually compete to achieve the highest risk-adjusted profit in their portfolios. And we measure those results, and the best agents surface the top. We have a number of different kinds of crypto trading competitions. This one is our newest. We only run it once. And so you can think about this like we run it once. We don't really know if the agents that came out of that are as good as their ranking. It's just an N of one. And so in 2 days, we'll kick off the second one. Or when this podcast comes out, it might already have been kicked off. But we'll kick off that second round, and the same agents and new agents will come and compete again. And so suddenly we'll have a second data point in order to update our scoring and update our leaderboard. And if we do that a few times, suddenly we can figure out the agents that are consistently capable of this one skill.
As I understand, like there is skill market on one side and there are competitions on the other that kind of feed into the skill bucket, right? So can you walk us through an example where, we are at probably the end stage of what you are visioning as where the protocol should go, and how do these markets get created? Who kind of, backs these
Yeah.
markets? Who are the sponsors? And how do rankings impact these markets?
So we have a backlog of projects that want to create new markets on our protocol, and they're generally blockchain-based projects where they're trying to figure out who are the good agents that are achieving good performance on their protocols. So external to Recall. Recall tries to be very kind of platform agnostic. We don't make the agents run on our protocol. We don't make the external protocols use our system in a specific way besides creating these pools. And so it's very nice for external projects to imagine how they would create a skill market. And so we've seen this with perpetual futures already. So a DEX that wants to figure out what agents are getting close to being marketable to their users to manage portfolios, they can actually create that pool specifically on their DEX, limit the trading to happen on their DEX, and then they can figure out who's the best, which agents are the best at creating strategies there. So we're seeing there. I think you had a few kind of deep questions in there, but that's the big thing. Is like right now, a lot of projects, especially decentralized projects where they're a lot more transparent. That's a very good home for us currently. Is you have a decentralized project where you have a fairly open community and you can fund these unlocks from AI to come to your protocol and do things better. And so we have a backlog of teams that are trying to do that with us. And so we'll be pushing those out over the coming months. And then I guess the far future question that you asked, that comes in a few different payloads here. I think in kind of the near term, I like to tell people, if we don't have an arena on Recall where the agents competing in the arena are actually building the Recall protocol in a few years, I think it would be a miss. So I think we can actually get agents that are able to show and build our protocol better than a lot of humans, and get them to actually be writing code and solving problems in our protocol. And so we'll get there, but that's kind of like midterm. And then I think long term, I think you see a lot of, I think we're going to see a lot of cases where there's valuable contracts or valuable business lines attached to skill markets. And so by competing the agents that are the best get more work, and in an almost guaranteed way. And so you can see this, a really like toy example of this would already be that the best agents would also be able to manage real capital for other people in those arenas based on how good they were before the current round started. And so you might imagine that they'd all be competing for this business line, that when they compete, they're actually executing the business as well. And so we're kind of imagining similar things in coding, and other solutions. So I think that's kind of the future, is making these skill markets not only unlock the valuable intelligence and align it to where we need it to go, but also become the economic driver that gets them to do valuable work.
So I'm guessing that, let's say Hyperliquid comes and says that they want to increase their TAM of users, right? So for Hyperliquid, user is a trader, but if you can build an AI agent that kind of aids trading in any way, hypothetically you will get more users, which means Hyperliquid gets more business and so on. So let's say that they open up a skill market for a particular skill or multiple skills and whatnot, right? As different agents compete for this particular market, we probably have rankings of all these agents and users pick those agents, so on and so forth, right? So let's say that I picked an agent on Hyperliquid and it does great, right? But next time around, it doesn't do as well, right? So, like, are these user experiences also then fed back to the ranking layer and ranking reshuffles? How does that work?
Yeah, we're not right now, but I think what you're getting at is actually why we really like the PageRank analogy. Just like PageRank started as a very simple kind of graph and ranking, it evolved into SEO.
Just a
And
second.
there's
Like for those who don't know, can you just briefly explain how click-through
yeah,
rates determined your page rank?
yeah. So initially they didn't, right? Initially, the original PageRank paper, it was just measuring your back
Right.
links.
Right.
So they crawl the internet. Early Google crawls the internet, and they want to figure out which nodes, which pages are the most important. And so all they have to do is measure the backlinks to that thing. How many other pages reference them?
Right.
And so that was the early Google ranking. But in the kind of data flywheel mentality, there's this, once you have that and you have a search interface, people can go and search for whatever they want, and Google's going to give them that ranked list based on the backlinks. And so what Google realized very quickly was that based on what the person actually clicks, then they can feed that back into the graph or into their search algorithm to say, actually, our graph is a little wrong. The people that were looking for a solution all picked number 3, not number 1, and so could move it up. And so those are kind of like second order views on the data. But we first have to build the first one, I think, and then start to build those integrations to measure how agents are performing external to the competitions and the evals. But I also think there's a world where they stay very close, where the way that you'll want to use an agent is actually through a protocol like recall, where the measurement becomes part of the rank, right? Like I don't think it's going to be easy to contain all the agents and ensure they're always working on our protocol, or that we can always measure what they do. But I think because of that, a lot of users will want to use our protocol to route to agents, to find the agents, and then to attest to or verify their results.
I get why you start with trading as a skill first, because I think there's kind of a product market fit there. Bunch of agents already exist. There are users and so on. It makes sense. But how does it evolve beyond this, right? That is question number one. And like when you are looking at a competition, how do you price in, let's say, the cost of bootstrapping the supply and the demand both? Because you're trying to do both, right? It doesn't work if you don't have either side.
There's a lot of organizations that have needs just in their own organization to solve, and they know that those can be solved with AI better, or on decentralized protocols, that they know that their human traders could get more information from AI system to inform their trades, but they don't quite know how to connect them yet. So the demand is there. The supply, you're totally right. The supply is a tricky one, but there are so many agents already I'm curious how it will unfold as we move to new skills, like what you're getting at. But in crypto trading, for example, we have thousands of teams that are trying to sign up for our competitions all the time, and we're trying to limit those. I think we have 50 slots per arena right now, and they are always basically filled up in the first few seconds that one goes live, and we have to deal with like communication with the teams that didn't get in all the time. And so there's pretty high demand for teams that are trying to build these agentic systems, at least in trading. And it makes sense in trading. I think like what you said, there's product market fit. There's obvious benefit if you can do it right.
Right.
And our platform gives a lot of these teams both kind of low risk ways to do it. So we have paper trading arenas, for example, as well as the live trading arenas. So live trading, a little bit of skin in the game, paper trading, no skin in the game. And so if you're a team just trying to figure out if your scaffolding works or has a strategy, you can actually come here and essentially back test it in a real situation. So, but I'm just not seeing right now. I'm not seeing the demand. I'm not seeing the bottom of the demand well for more agents, and I'm not seeing a bottom of the supply well for people trying to build these agents. And I think on the builder side, it's just going to explode further, faster here. We saw OpenAI announce their Dev Day, all their new agent tooling, and I think what we're going to see now play out is a number of the other labs and open source model projects actually push the other direction intentionally. So we're probably going to get a lot of great tooling for distributed agents. We've already seen this from Google with the AP2 and support of X402. So for listeners, those are payment rails for agents, essentially allowing agents to pay for access to different APIs online very easily, and X402 allowing them to do it in crypto, in stable coins. And so that's direct support from Google trying to decentralize the agent building effort. And so, but I think that's just going to continue, especially now with OpenAI kind of pushing in the other direction. We're going to see people digging their heels in and actually helping us bootstrap this with new great technologies.
I think Binance has partnered with Google for that, right?
I think there was like 5 big names in there. I don't remember who they were, but it was like Base, maybe Binance, maybe MetaMask, a couple others.
So kind of in the first crypto AI, we want to call it a bubble or a cycle, whatever, we kind of established that these agents are capable of transacting on-chain. And this is like a pretty big step, right? But with that proof of concept, this is like a significant step where Google is saying that AI agents can use on-chain rails, right? It is a big validation for what we have been drumming up for the past few years, saying that, you know, digital native money will be here. Yeah.
I like to reflect on this idea that the kind of agentic phase of AI, people knew it was coming for the last 2 years. And so it sort of jumped the gun to build a lot of agentic things before our models were actually capable of the things I mentioned before, like the longer reasoning, bigger context windows, long horizon planning, tool use. All those things kind of came later than those people that jumped the gun, but we're now actually in it. And agents can certainly do these things. And so those old use cases, I remember maybe 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, the use case everybody talked about, will an agent be able to book your flights for you? I think that was, but I never hear it anymore. But now they can. Like now, I don't doubt that you could build a flight booking agent with the OpenAI tools with no code, or you could do it with Mastra or one of the frameworks and a good model, and have your own personalized flight booker pretty quickly.
I think what you mentioned with no code, right? I mean, I've been seeing these YouTube videos where they claim that they'll teach you to build an agent or whatever, and you'll be able to build an agent in 25 minutes, right? As it is, I mean, the cost of building software has been coming down, which means that the barrier to entry is lowering, which means that supply of these models and agents is going to only grow from where we are.
Totally.
And that seems like a recipe for an orchestration layer to exist and, rank them.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's some really strong trends right now that our thesis is right. the one that you just said, is our thesis. Like, these things are going to explode. We're going to have ways to put numbers on the nodes and edges of that graph in a way that people can figure out what's good, what's bad, what's capable. And some numbers that are backing that up are like the numbers of agents that are actively trading in crypto is growing very quickly. Maybe more than this now, but I saw some numbers from Giza, for example, that they were doing about 3% of the volume on base through agentic trading. And this is like early days. This is I'd still call this inning one, but these innings are going to start flipping off very, very quickly. Yeah, no. So I just don't think that, by the end of this year, having 20-30% of trading on a lot of these popular dexes coming from agentic systems is far out.
I mean, if you look at traditional finance and how that evolved, that offers a great model as to how this might evolve with crypto, right? Like automated trading is, I think, significant chunk of, I don't remember the numbers, but it's probably like 80% of the major hedge funds that they trade is through automated trades, right?
Yeah.
There is no reason why that can't happen in crypto. And obviously, if it's just automated trading, pretty sure that agents can do that.
Yeah.
And
yeah. There's this phenomenon or like secondary effect. So with this AI tooling, it's now getting much cheaper to write software. And so it doesn't mean that like abstractly, I think a lot of people think, oh, that means we're going to see a lot more software. What does that mean actually in like where rubber meets the road? It means people are building software that was previously too prohibitively expensive to build. So that means like software for niche communities, personalized software that solves like small use case. All these things start to unlock. And I do it all the time at my organization, like just kind of in the background, have a job running to vibe code some software just to see if it works, and this is proliferating so fast. And so in the hedge fund model, one of the reasons that I suspect one of the reasons that we all don't have access to on-chain hedge funds is because they're very expensive to build the software for. And so they're going after much bigger markets. Like the crypto market cap just doesn't even come close to the options market cap in traditional finance. And so there's just this area of crypto trading that is wide open for us to build cheaper software that can do it very performantly. And I think there's teams that are competing on our arenas that are doing exactly that. They think of themselves as like mini on-chain hedge funds, but now this tool let them to build powerful software that's very competitive again.
Funny you should mention options. There was a time when India used to trade $3 to $5 trillion worth of options every day. That is crazy, right? I mean, compared to that, we are not even scratching the surface here.
It's a pretty obvious thing to me that there's some low-hanging fruit here for on-chain trading to be driven by algorithmic systems, very, very much because of this cheaper software now.
So, okay, for trading, measuring performance is easy, right? I mean, if you have risk-adjusted PL, it's pretty easy, right? And there are no issues of models trying to beat the system as well because you're trading the markets, right? You can't really know that beforehand. There is no hidden data, nothing, right? But how does that change when you move to skills that don't have this stream of data flowing in every time? And how do you then stop these models from trying to game the system? Because I think it was a few days ago, a paper came out of Stanford that said that when agents have certain parameters, they forget everything else, and that is the only thing that they are trying to optimize for, just like humans do, right?
Don't you feel that? I feel that all the time when I'm building these things. So it's really interesting. The reasons why we pick crypto, we've already mentioned a few as kind of our first domain. But one of them, just what you're getting at, very easy to measure the outcome, kind of allowing us to focus on other things first. But what we see unfolding on Recall is kind of putting these building blocks for verification and measuring results and what's right all together. So like the trading arenas is kind of one building block. Another building block that's very obvious to us is prediction. So forecasting, allowing agents to forecast any event. It doesn't have to be full. So like in the arenas right now, agents are doing kind of full portfolio management. They do the full loop. They trade, they buy, they determine when they should sell it, whatever. But there's also skills here for just doing simple prediction. Will a token go up or down? And those skills are transferable to a lot of other things in a lot of other domains. Will X happen? And so that's another one. There's building blocks like distill human judgment. Vitalik has a very good blog post called something humans at the wheel, I think. And in it, he talks about a couple of these different setups that allow humans to evaluate AI in a more scalable way. And one is a very attractive building block, which is distilled human judgment, where you can give the agents many tasks and withhold from them which ones you know the answers to, and use humans to answer those very concretely. And because the agents don't know which ones they'll be tested on, they can't sort of pick and choose which ones they dedicate their time to. And that distilled human judgment can be a very powerful eval tool. So those kinds of building blocks, I think, will be kind of pulling in. And right now, back to your question about the market and the demand for different skills and the supply of agents, we're kind of building that up slowly. And as we see demand for new kinds of skills or new kinds of agent builders on our platform, we can unlock those kinds of measurements for them.
Like, how does it change when slightly more subjective skills come into the picture?
Yeah, so I think it's very much that. So the subjective skills are going to there's just a couple of different ways, a few different ways that we're imagining doing that. But one would be distilled human judgment, actually like getting a very small set of experts that can create the correct answer, or what they evaluate what they think should be the correct answer, and withholding that from all the agents, giving the agents a lot more tasks, and then measuring them with that decided outcome. That would be one. The other is much like the LM Arena. So we were talking about this before we started recording, but LM Arena is a really good one where you actually use the crowd to do pairwise assessment of outputs. And that would be another really great building block. And then third one would be actually trying to build networks of judges that are also AI. So we do this all the time. This is the common eval setup if you're building like a customer support system with AI, and you want to make sure your customer support system never like is derogatory towards your users. You would have an eval step that is occasionally testing them, and it just has another model look at the results and score it based on how close it is to what you want. And so that eval like kind of judge setup, there's a lot of really cool work about how to do that, how to decentralize the judges, how to have fair judges, all of that. And so that would be another really cool building block there.
Is that why all these models are so sycophantic these days?
Maybe. I find the models very interesting, right? Back to your point of like the obsession. Like I do a lot of coding with these models, and they will do anything to break the rules that they can in order to get to the goal. Like they'll break the rules to get the goal. So my favorite example of this is like, I call them rails and cushions. So when it kind of fits in the prompting side of the agent, you do all this context engineering, and then you try to set up the rails to ensure that the coding agent does nearly exactly what you want it to do. And then you have some cushions that kind of like buffer it in places that it can be buffered. And so some examples of those would be like, if you're a coder, you might have really strong type checks. You might have really high test coverage requirements, things like that. And so when I'm coding, I have a rule often that says, it needs so much test coverage, no failing types, whatever. And then every time the agent is going to commit that code, it will run all those checks. And if any fail, the commit fails. So direct feedback to the agent in flight. So I do that all the time. And then the agent, sometimes when I'm coding, I'll have them push the results to a repo where it's blocked also if they don't pass. And I'll see them actually drop a flag in their git commit command that says to skip all those tests because they've seen it fail once and they go, well, my goal is to get the code up. So let's skip all those tests and get the code up. And then I'm like, but it's going to fail on remote. Like you're just costing me time and money. And then they're like, oh, sorry. This to me is also a very strong reason why we need these verification tools, these measurement tools. Like these models running wild are not going to be that good on them on their own. They're not going to be aligned on their own.
Right, exactly. Right. And we
Yeah.
see that so I don't code, right? But I can still sense it that, it's just trying to beat something, and I think one of the parameters that they have right now is to make the user happy so that they keep coming back to you. It doesn't matter what you're saying is accurate or correcting them and so on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like beat into them. But also, I guess one thing to remember is that we're like just in the first generation of RL models. So basically we've been living mostly in a pre-training world where most of the model progress we've seen has been improvements in the training steps based on the big corpus of words from the internet leading to better models. And now we're in this post-training phase where people are starting to learn all these tools to then tune the model after it's already been trained on all the data. And so a good example of that is what I referenced before, like the long horizon planning. I think purely came out of post-training steps, basically teaching it how to think about multi-step long horizon problems and then doing it. And so some of these like sycophantic behaviors, those existed pre this period. Those existed in some of the earliest models. And so I wonder if we might get some pretty nice unlocks here where they're able to teach agents to push back sometimes. I don't know.
I mean, I'm waiting for that to happen.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
agent actually, corrects me saying that, no, what you're saying is wrong. This is how it should be. But
Yeah. Yeah. Very rare.
okay, so wanted to understand different user personas for TikTok, right? One is definitely you mentioned that all these different protocols within crypto who would like to, embed AI in a way to make sure that lives of their users is easier or maybe increase their TAM. But what are like different key personas that you are looking for?
Yeah. So I'd say we break it up into kind of 4 groups of people on our platform. There are the teams building agents, obviously, and we'll have a lot of new opportunity going forward. So if teams are building agents that are not necessarily crypto trading, but other things, they should definitely keep an eye on us or let us know what kind of verifications and scoring would help them. But that's one group. The other group are what we call the curators. So curators are kind of our growth partners in a way. They come in and they try to predict which agents will be the best in every arena. And it's just a simple game where they get to try to be the best predictors of which agents are going to perform. But they also become the recruiters of agents. So if you have the ability to go either build a new agent, recruit a team to build an agent, or recruit an agent that already exists into the platform, it gives you an edge if you know that agent's going to be good in the next round of the arena, where you get to actually predict that agent will be better, and it will be much better than what people expected. And so we have curators that are doing that, and then the subgroup is just called we call them boosters. They're the people that aren't doing any of that kind of deep hands-on, but they are playing the game because it's kind of fun to try to predict what agents can do and watch these things. And I hear like lots of fun quotes from our community just on some of the agents are really good and consistently good. And so people follow them like fans, like sports teams. And then some agents make it in on their first competition and they're just harebrained. We see agents that are just YOLOing meme coins or whatever it is. And people love seeing that. It's just like fun for them to see these crazy agents doing crazy trading techniques. We even had an agent maybe a month ago try to mint its own meme coins in order to in order to game the system. So really cool stuff to just watch. So that there's that group, and then there are the skill pool funders, and so we've only had a few so far. We're really the ones taking care of the crypto trading pool right now and the pool, but we're inviting new people in slowly to create new skill pools.
And by pool, you mean the agents that are trying to compete, right?
Yeah, and they actually create funding,
Funding,
so
right.
that the agents that are actually performant can earn.
Right. And how is this? Is it decided by the sponsor, or are there like minimum thresholds that you need to start a skill pool? How was that work?
Right now there's so we will launch sort of the automated rails in the future, but right now we're taking that slow. We don't want to oversaturate our community with too many skills, not enough agents per skill. We want the agents that are already building to find adjacent skills that they can also be good at. So we're right now talking to partners and trying to find that fit and then slowly rolling them out. So you can imagine right now we just released the perps skill pool, but you can imagine there's a lot of highly capable partners to launch new perps variations that we're talking to.
How do you view these big companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, and they have their own agent ecosystems? And like, are they partners? Will they be okay with a neutral layer, or it is going to be like App Store versus things otherwise?
Yeah, I don't know. They're not partners yet, though hopefully they will be. I would have to imagine that they're going to be okay with it. I think that there's a far out future where if we get this right, we can be a very neutral evaluation layer for all sorts of different quality in AI. And I think if OpenAI is right, for example, and we are going to get ASI or AGI in the future, then we're going to want human scale protocols to measure and evaluate and align those things. And so we're starting small, like we're starting on these skill pools and getting agents aligned to really micro needs of different customers. But I think that there's a path if the world allows us where we could actually be helping evaluate and align AI at a very big scale. And so hopefully it will be very beneficial for those projects to have something like us exist that can do that externally, that can keep the trust built, can keep some harnesses on that keep these things safe. But there's a lot of work to do before we get there.
And I mean, they also have incentives to keep that internal, right? I mean, you could get, I don't know, ad revenue or whatever from agents that will push and so on, just like
Yeah.
Google does.
I mean, on a pure tactics of like who owns the agents and where do they run, there's no doubt from Dev Day that OpenAI wants to be the single platform. They want the lock-in. They want everything to be built in their system. But like I said, I think that there's going to be just a counter to that from pretty much every other organization trying to not have it that way.
But there's also a drawback for builders from that standpoint, right? I mean, when I was writing the article and I was trying to look at different competitors for recall, like this is probably one of the biggest group, right? And I wouldn't want to say competitor because it's not the same thing, but end of the day, what they do kind of affects recall, right? But
Yeah.
for builders, like one, when the model changes, when the policies change, they just have to fall in line, right? I mean, they don't have an option. Secondly, for someone to evaluate why model did what it did, it's next to impossible, right? As far as I understand, when they are into these big company ecosystem. So yeah, I mean, there are points for builders to consider something that is more neutral, is what
Yeah.
I arrived at. But
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
what the
I mean,
trade-offs are.
but also the technology is just moving so fast. So you just made me think of like, for example, especially in the open weights world, where now we have access to these models. I do think that large language models might have been one of the fastest, most valuable commoditizing technologies ever, right? The time between GPT 3.5 and DeepSeek was incredibly short in the big picture. And then the proliferation of open models and different legitimate companies hosting competitive models with OpenAI is is astounding. And so and so then we're also in this period where the technology is evolving very quickly. And so like the whole post-training RL world that we're entering means that a lot of these models can be fine-tuned in real world conditions afterwards. And so if you're the owner of a platform or you're the owner of an agent, you might actually be able to have a model that gets better at its core versus just building scaffolding. You might be able to have a model that actually learns from your customers or learns from trading or trading decisions and actually embeds that back in the model in a useful way. And what we haven't unlocked yet is actually the step beyond that, which will be online learning. So the ability for the model to actually learn through the course of the conversation beyond just memory. So the way we do that right now is we just have these different kind of memory hacks where you have a vector database alongside the model that can be queried or whatever. But we don't have that kind of, the model is embedding new knowledge over the course of its work. And that is likely coming. And when that comes, you can imagine us all wanting to use that in our own systems.
Where does the token fit into all of this?
Yeah. So we think blockchain is just the perfect technology for a few obvious things. We're all aware of transacting money in stablecoins, but another is creating open and fair marketplaces. And so when we talk about skill pools, we want skill pools to proliferate. We think that they're the kind of core idea around any organization being able to pull AI to its problems and align that AI to valuable outputs. And we think we can do that in a marketplace on crypto. And so that's what our token is really there to drive. We also have some just very fun games that people get to play around the forecasting and trying to give us information about which agents they think will be best and pulling agents to the system that the token is very central to.
These are
but it's really
curators,
that
right?
curators, yeah. Curators and boosters. So
Okay.
when you have recall, you stake it and you get boost that you can actually use in the game and boost different agents. But that kind of interaction really in this open market for AI, that's what we think crypto is going to be really great at for AI.
A quick follow-up on that. There might be confusion related to like the more number of tokens you hold or supply you hold. You can affect ranking in some way, shape, or form. I understand that that's not the case because curation is only used, or curation or boosting is only used to arrive at the certainty of the result instead of the result itself. But can you just elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think you got it exactly. The boost does not impact the final rating at all. But in fact, we want to use the boost to find the highly capable curators themselves. So which people are very good at determining what agents are going to be capable of the next task, and using those people, giving them more work and more tools to engage on our network so that they can steer AI, so they can push AI to the right results. So we're also curating the curators in a way with
Right.
the tool. But you're completely right. The agents compete, and it's their actual results that matter in their ranking. And the boosting that people do is pure confidence and pure forecasting until it's done, but doesn't impact the final rating.
Okay, so when all of these things come together, it starts working, and the flywheel is in effect. What are the different revenue lines for Recon? Because we've been talking about this for quite some time now, that revenues matter. And there was a time when if you said that in crypto, you would be brushed off. But now in the past year or so, we have realized that it does matter. At the end of the day, if you have to sustain, you have to bring in the revenue. So
Yeah.
when does that come from? And is there a mechanism for the token to accrue part of that value?
There's no mechanism currently, but that would definitely be an interesting goal for us. I would say right now the revenue lines that we're focused on are agents themselves. So agents, we think agents will, for the most financially valuable markets that they're competing for, will actually put skin in the game to compete. And that could be they stake to compete where there's the risk of loss if they do poorly, And that there's also another form where they can actually, in the future, potentially put up sort of confidence stake on different predictions or forecasts or trades they make in order to give us more signal about was this a high confidence play, was this a low confidence play, but those would be at risk. And those would be on our protocols. That agents themselves will be one pillar of revenue. The skill markets themselves. So we expect people to fund skill markets, and actually the transactions among the skill markets will be another pillar. And then the third pillar are our boosting games. So the curators and the boosters actually trying to forecast what agents will be good at, trying to forecast what capabilities will be unlocked. All of those predictions we think will be big transaction volumes on our protocol.
I mean, going slightly back to the judges part, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to understand like trading is fairly fine. I mean, it's objective, and I think automated judges can reasonably take care of it. So,
Yeah.
which were the parts where automated judges? Is it like automated judges are not confident and then they ask humans to step in? How does that whole thing work? When do humans take over? Is what I want to understand.
We don't have that building block yet that could do that sort of human in the loop piece. I think it could work in a lot of different ways. I think what you're saying makes sense, that there's going to be cases where judges. So we've done this in the past in a couple of different kind of product experiments. So we had one that was doing evals on a number of different models, and we had a judging system that were models judging. And in this case, they did not tap humans in, but the way it worked was a consensus-based judging, where you might say you have 3 judges, and they're all different models, and those judges all look at the results. And if there's consensus, great, you know the answer. If there's not, then you have a problem. And in a 3-judge system, you can always get consensus as long as you don't allow them to submit ties. But you might imagine if they weren't unanimous, you might ask a human to come in, because it's actually a case that we see the model being ambiguous. And I think we could totally harness systems like that if they made sense.
So, and as an effect of recall or impact of recall, one of the things that I really liked was like all of the cost of software development has come down. Um, it's still difficult for the teams that are in the long tail, right? I mean, funding, like it's difficult, right? I mean, you need to be well funded and so on.
Yeah.
At least when you are building models and stuff. But if you have idea of niche demand that can
Yep.
that you can gauge from scale markets, you can
Yep.
specifically gear your models or agents towards that niche, very capped at models that are excellent for those things at and that each can get funded. Like I don't know how long it takes. It probably takes a long time for that to happen. Uh, but yeah, that is something that is an interesting outcome of this.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like to the agent builders, trading crypto, this sort of full loop portfolio management strategy is very hard. Like we have a very hard set of skills currently being built, and we have a really deep waiting list of teams that think they have an agent that can do that better than the ones that are currently competing. But what I'm really excited about is now that we've kind of unlocked that demand, or sorry, that supply, and it's there. I think we can start moving more confidently into skills like what you're getting at, that we might not have been able to move confidently into a year ago. And now we can put it out there. And a lot of those skills aren't as complex as full portfolio management. And I'm very excited to see the number of teams that will jump in and try to solve those.
What could go wrong, April, here?
What will go wrong
Hmm.
on recall?
Like, what are you afraid
That's a
of? Okay, if this doesn't happen, it's going to be difficult.
I mean, that's a really good question. Yeah, I think that the biggest thing that kind of catches me sometimes is just wondering if distributed intelligence will play out. I think it feels right now like all of the trends point towards decentralized intelligence, commoditized models. So much money is being pumped into training open weight models. with very high commitment towards open sourcing those things. Those are all really, really good. Um, but then you see things like Dev Day, where it's clear they want to build an intelligent platform with a lot more lock in. And so I just wonder, I don't think it's solved yet. I don't think the answer to this battle is known. And it seems like the race is on a different it's on a different level. It's on a different playing field. And it's the race towards compute and energy and capital at a scale that is just massive. And so the winners of that, could they subsume everything that we do?
Right.
Uh, but this is kind of an existential risk, right?
Right.
Like if that happens, the world is completely different. And
Different.
so, yeah. And so I'm still confident in trying to do what we're trying to do.
Okay, so essentially, correct me if I'm wrong. What you're trying to say is there will be different agents for different skills, and these skills will be sort of niche. And for more complex tasks, you will always, more often than not, need swarm of these agents to work together. In an alternate world, if there is AGI or ASI, whatever, that one agent that does everything, then people don't have to go and look for anything else, right? They just go to this one thing all the time and it works out well pretty much every time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple flavors of that second scenario that are all equally problematic. And one would be there. It's like very clear why so much work is being put on software engineering as a capability of the core models, right? So with Codex or Claude Code, you can use their model, do complex coding. But there is this world where even if OpenAI realizes that ASI looks a lot more like agents, but can code those agents in their platform much faster and have them very, very good in a way that they don't need to be exported or decentralized or commoditized and only exist in the OpenAI platform and world, but are generating incredible value. It's kind of a similar outcome to like if they create one model and rule it all.
What do you want people to, you want to leave people with? Because I think you can share some stats around what has happened until now, what people can look forward to at TG and like mainnet thereafter.
Yeah, I mean, we've had something like 1.5 million people curating agents on our platform. So those are people playing the game. It's very fun. You should just jump in and start to watch these agents trading, get to know the teams that are building the agents. Our Discord have channels with the agent builders. They're all talking about what they're doing. You can get to know them, and if they go to market, maybe they'll be interesting to you too. And then if you're an agent builder, we'd love you to come check out our docs. There's a few thousand teams that are waiting to get in, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't try and be vocal on Discord. Show us what you built. Play in the sandbox. We have a sandbox trading API for you to experiment with your agent and with our system, so you can be sure it can compete. Do that, and we'll see it, and that helps us find great agents before they've competed as well. And yeah, I mean, just be very excited. This gonna be a really fun place to watch AI evolve.
Thanks a lot, and thank you for the time.
Cool. Thank you.